Violence. Peter Ndoro is live for us, speaking to economist Eddie Cross. Over to you, Peter.
Francis, thanks very much indeed, and welcome to Harare. And there's an air of expectation because in a few hours' time we probably will know the identity of the new president of Zimbabwe. I think a lot of people have kind of put their bets now. They've got an idea who they think it's going to be. But whoever the identity is, the problems that need to be solved will remain the same. And one person who understands how government works is a 10-year MP Eddie Cross, now retired from politics, but still working very hard as an economist. Eddie, thanks very much for joining us. Welcome to the program.
Thanks, Peter.
All right, so whoever is the president tomorrow morning has got to fix a few things.
Yeah.
Every day I wake up, I see queues outside the banks, people trying to get money out of the bank. How does the next finance minister, the next president, fix that?
Well, I think the problems are pretty well known, and I think the solutions likewise. The problem is the political will to implement them, because whatever we do, it's going to be painful. You can't come from where we've been with the economic collapse in 2008 and now the stagnation that we've had for a number of years without severe problems. So the first issue, the primary problem of our economic problems, is the fiscal deficit. We're spending more money than we're collecting. And until we get that corrected, the overborrowing from the local market will continue, the shortage of cash will continue, and inflation is rearing its head. Inflation in imported goods is about 100%. Inflation in locally manufactured goods is about 30%.
So inflation in Zimbabwe, locally, 30%?
Yeah. Many professional economists would say we're approaching the 50% level, which is hyperinflation. So the inflationary situation is very serious. So whoever becomes president has to tackle that. That's number one priority.
What do they do?
Well, the first thing you do is you try and fix the fiscal deficit. We're spending too much, we're not collecting enough.
Is that cutting the civil service?
The civil service is the principal problem. We have a massive civil service. At independence, our civil service was 67,000. Today it's 287,000. But it's not just that. It's all the people that are in the civil service without a job. There are perhaps 100,000, perhaps more than that. People who don't actually have a real job in the civil service, but who are on the payroll. That has to be rectified. Tough, very tough decisions.
How do we deal with the currency drama? Because we've got real money, US dollars, that people see occasionally. We have these bond notes, and then we have this electronic money that's kind of circulating as well. We can't have all of these systems operating at the same time.
Well, you can. It's the same in South Africa.
Electronic maybe, but you can't have bond notes surely and US dollars.
Bond notes are currency.
Okay.
The bond note is just the same as the rand. Let's not beat around the bush.
Okay.
They call it bond notes, but it's currency.
Okay.
I think if you correct the fiscal imbalance, and I think the key to that is not just cutting expenditure, because that's very difficult. You can't trim the education budget. You can't trim people's salaries. The one thing you've got to do is to try and expand your tax base. We're a developing country. We have a massive informal sector. South Africa, your informal sector is nearly 50% of your GDP. Here, it's more than 70%. We're the most informalized economy in the world, according to the IMF. Now, we've got to be able to tax those guys. And in my view...
So let's just define what this informal sector is. So these are the vendors, these are probably engineers who used to work for companies that have set up their shops on the side of the road. And, you know, when we talk about 90% unemployment, that's almost a fiction then, really. All that's happened is that they're self-employed now, but are not part of a measurable economy.
That's right. Well, look at it. We've got 45,000 taxis. That's minibuses operating in Zimbabwe. Let alone informal sector taxis. You know, there must be 100,000 guys running around in a taxi. Look at our traffic levels. This is a much bigger economy than is reflected in the official statistics. And I think the key to taxing that system is the electronic system transfer. which has suddenly dominated here because of the shortage of cash. And if we would tax that by a small amount, we could balance our budget overnight.
Okay, so every transaction, get a few cents from there.
Correct.
And straight to Treasury.
Straight to Treasury.
Okay.
No.
Give us a sense of what the true value of the Zimbabwean economy might be. What's the official level, and what do you think it is in real terms?
Right. Well, last year, in broad terms, our GDP was 19 billion. That's about the GDP of Bloemfontein. Okay.
Yeah.
Our national budget was $6.3 billion expenditure, about $4.7 billion of revenue, $3.7 billion of revenue, with a $2.5 billion deficit in the middle. My view is that the real economy is more like 50 or $55 billion.
Wow.
Instead of being 1.5% of the GDP of South Africa, we are probably closer to 10% of the GDP of South Africa. And this is reflected in our trade levels. We're your biggest trading partner. We buy from you about $500 million a month. That's $6 billion a year. And remember, we're buying from you industrial goods. We're not buying raw materials.
Right.
We're buying industrial goods. So we're a major generator of employment in South Africa. Where does all that money come from? How do we finance it? Goodness only knows. I'm telling you this, the bankers can't tell you. You have to go to the informal sector to find out.
Find a way to formalize it.
That's right.
Eddie Cross, it's been a pleasure talking to you. We're going to have to leave it there, but maybe we can bring you out of retirement and make you economic planning minister. Who knows?
Heaven above. Right.
All right, that's where we're going to finish our chat on the economy, some of the issues that will be on the table of the next president, literally from tomorrow morning, because they're going to have to hit the ground running to make sure that those deficit issues are dealt with and these currency shortages are dealt with, and stop the queues at the banks. That's it from us for the time being, and stand by. A little bit later on, 10 o'clock, we'll find out who the next president of Zimbabwe will be.